Good afternoon. Welcome. It's Tuesday, March 18th. It is 4:30 p.m. and I'm going to call our meeting to order. I'm going to start with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to the land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabe traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as right holders and stewards of the lands and waters in which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to item number 2, does anybody have any pecuniary interest to disclose with regards to today's agenda? We're going to move on then to, Councillor Andrews, yes. Okay, moving on to item number 3, which is our closed session. Today we will be proceeding in closed session in accordance with the Municipal Act to address items pertaining to personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, Section 239(2)B. This is related to discussions regarding civic award nominations and a CAO recruitment update. We are also in closed session to discuss items pertaining to labor relations or employee negotiations, Section 239(2)D. This is related to discussions regarding ongoing union negotiations. Can I get a mover and seconder to go into closed? Moved by Councillor Todd and seconded by Councillor Darrow. All in favor? And that is passed. And we will note, of course, after we come back into public, have a rise in report made to publicly. We are now in close. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director Williams. I welcome. It's Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. Welcome to this meeting of the Port Hope Council. It's 6:34 p.m. and I'm going to call our meeting to order. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. We're now going to move on to our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabe traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to item number 2, disclosures of pecuniary interest. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? I note that I have advised the clerk that I have a pecuniary interest related to item 11.1, so I will be leaving the room when that item is being discussed, and that the deputy mayor will assume the chair at that stage. Moving on to item number 3, closed session. Earlier today, Council passed a motion to proceed into closed session at 4:30 p.m. to consider business as permitted under the Municipal Act and listed on today's agenda. This motion was passed in a public session, streamed live, and was in accordance with our closed meeting policy. In the continual interest of transparency, I can report at this open meeting the outcome from today's closed session. Council approved the in-camera minutes from February 28th and March 4th, 2025. That was the last time that Council met in closed session. Council received information and considered items pertaining to identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees. This is in relation to the Civic Award nominations and an update from the Selection Committee on the recruitment of a permanent CAO position for the municipality. Council also received information related to labor relations or employee negotiations. This is related to ongoing union negotiations. Council received this information and provided direction to staff, and we have a few motions we need to make in open session with respect to the confidential direction that was provided to staff, and we can do this under business arising, which is the next item. So item number 4 is business arising from the closed session. Motion number 1, Civic Awards. Whereas Council at their in-camera meeting of March 18th, 2025 considered confidential staff report PRC 0225 regarding 2024 Civic Award recipient recommendations, and whereas Council considered the recommendations for 2024 Civic Award recipients by the Civic Awards Committee commending the excellent quality of applicants and their service to the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council approve the recipient recommendations for the 2024 Port Hope Civic Awards as proposed by the Civic Awards Advisory Committee in confidential staff report PRC 0224, and further that Council directs staff to proceed to bring the approved nominations forward for the award. I'm going to move on to motion number 2. Union negotiations. The Council confirmed the confidential direction provided to staff with respect to union negotiations and as further outlined in confidential staff report CAO 0325. Motion 3, CAO update. That Council received the update from the Selection Committee with respect to the recruitment of the permanent CAO position, and that Council confirmed the confidential direction provided to the Selection Committee, external recruiter, and staff with respect to next steps in the recruitment of the permanent CAO position. I'm going to need a mover and seconder for all of those motions. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Darrell. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on now to item number 5, announcements, updates, and recognitions. The first item is Public Information Center for the Walton Street Reconstruction Project. Join us for a Public Information Center for the Walton Street Reconstruction Project Phase 3 on March 25th, 2025. Staff and construction contractor will be there to provide the latest updates on the reconstruction project, including timelines, scope of the work, and how to stay informed throughout the project. This session will be held here at Town Hall from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. This session is primarily intended for businesses and residents within the Phase 3 construction area, but of course is open to all community members who wish to learn more about the project timelines, scope of work, and how to stay informed through the entire project. More information will be provided in the coming weeks. Stay informed at porthope.ca/Walton. Moving on to our next item, which is a presentation of a check to the municipality of Port Hope from an AI conference that we held here on February 6th and 7th. And I would like Councillor Todd to join me in presenting this check to the municipality. And Councillor Todd, if you would like to say a few words about the AI workshop that we had and the check that we'll be presenting today.
Yeah, thank you very much. To give some context, the mayor and I hosted an AI conference in town and invited municipalities from basically coast to coast. We had from Halifax across to Kelowna and everything in between to share what are the practical applications of AI in communities in order to help communities grow and do better. And there was very fascinating, very well attended. We had tickets available online so people could watch it in their homes. We had people who came into the Capitol Theatre and did it. And we were able to raise funds, which will be donated, you'll see shortly, to the municipality. And to give you a little context about the direction of these funds, so at the next meeting, because we can't do it on the spur of the moment, I'll bring forward a motion. And to give you some context, when we were doing budgets, the council had a strong intention to be able to make council more available and more accessible to people. Part of that was, could we be moving council meetings to other areas like the hub and do them on a rotational basis? Could we have spaces at the hub where people can watch and have more accessibility there? Of course, that requires technology. One of the reasons why we hold council meetings here in this chamber is because we have the camera on the back wall so that people can watch it at home. So that would give us some availability to take the show on the road, as it were. And so the direction will be to be able to take this money and put it towards either in its entirety or in part towards technology to expand that, and also to have staff come back with reports as to what the cost would look like, but also what the opportunities are there. So that's, for those who have not been following along, that's how that all came about.
Thank you, Councillor Attridge. And so this will be all for technology improvements at the Canton Hub and exploring the possibilities for not only the community being able to come to the hub to watch council meetings, but also to get a staff report looking at the feasibility of having regular council meetings in Ward 2 at the Canton Hub. So Councillor Attridge, if you'd like to join me at the front, and we can do an official handing over of the check. And CAO, can you just, for those that couldn't see it, the amount, because I just noted that we actually didn't say the amount.
Absolutely. So the amount was $21,513.68.
Yeah, it was a very well attended event, and I would hope that it's one that either we can repeat or we can do more of. I think it was a really enjoyable way to bring learning to the community and to be able to put money back into the community. So I think it solved a couple of things. So very happy with it.
And actually, I do have to say that there's no clapping allowed in the council chambers, just to be consistent in how I respond to the audience. Moving on to item number 6, we're going to move on to delegations. We have one delegation on the agenda tonight, and the delegation has requested extra time, and I have granted this request. The delegation will be introduced by John Cullen, but it's going to be both John Cullen and Ian Angus on behalf of the Rural Focus Group regarding rural property taxes. And the delegation has 15 minutes. So I'm going to ask Mr. Cullen to come to the microphone and to introduce Mr. Angus. Thank you. And if you could press the button on the right-hand side, just so that everybody can hear you clearly. Thank you very much, and welcome.
I'm on. Okay. Well, good evening, and thank you for hearing us. My name is John Cullen, one of the organizers of the Rural Focus Group, a group of Ward 2 residents formed to represent our values and principles of what is fair and equitable. Prior to amalgamation, we lived in a municipality that represented those values and principles. Since the amalgamation, we've had to rely on a municipality that is part urban and part rural, where, unfortunately, we've been exploited and ignored. You've all received, along with the outline of our presentation, a number of supporting materials which provide considerable detail about our situation, which will be referred to by our presenter. You should have the following. First is the Minister's Restructuring Order dated 18 March 2000, amalgamating Port Hope and Hope to give taxpayers more streamlined and efficient local government. The second one is the October 2013 Area Rating Report, which was co-authored by our presenter and includes a detailed examination of local taxation issues and how to ensure the levy distribution is fair and equitable across the municipality. The third is the 18 February 2014 presentation by the Rural Redesign Committee, of which I was also a member, wherein a petition with 2,603 signatures representing 81% of the adult population of Ward 2 expressed significant dissatisfaction with amalgamation. The petition was forwarded by the municipality to the province, but was not acted on. Received for information. The fourth is a tabulation of 25 years of mill rates for Ward 1 and Ward 2 and a comparison with Hamilton Township. I would now like to introduce our presenter, one of the authors of amalgamation itself, and a long-standing and knowledgeable member of our community, Ian Angus. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors, and staff. Firstly, thank you for hearing us. Tonight, a lot of people have come here to speak with you. They are the speakers tonight. I'm just the presenter. They are speaking to you about an amalgamation which was well-intentioned but has failed. An amalgamation that is broken. And the question is, do you fix it or do you forget it? That is the choice that you must now make. And we are here to explain why you must do so. So how did it all come to this? How did we get to where we are today? Why did amalgamation occur? And what was the purpose of it all? Well, the Fewer Municipal Politicians Act of 1999 started it all. To quote the province, amalgamation was to give taxpayers more streamlined and efficient local government. When the province decreed that small municipalities must group together, Hope Township had two choices: Hamilton Township or Port Hope. Hamilton Township was not interested, and Port Hope was an urban municipality, not a rural one. Hamilton Township refused to join with Hope Township. And Hope Township refused to join with the town. Under pressure from the province to break that impasse, Port Hope offered protection to a Hope Township that would join with them. Rural councillors' votes would equal those of urban councillors on all matters relating to taxes, planning, and boundaries. And that was accepted as being fair and equitable. When the Port Hope Transition Board members outnumbered the Hope Township Board members 7-5, Port Hope agreed that all decisions would require at least one yea vote from both councillors. Otherwise, the decision would be automatically defeated. That too was fair and equitable. When it came to taxes, Port Hope agreed. Taxes would be based on what each ward had previously been raising. In other words, they were to be based on the actual costs of delivering services to each of the urban and rural communities. And it is noteworthy that in 2007, the Council of the Day ordered that Council must give specific approval to any change in departmental service levels to Ward 2. No such approvals have been given to this day. For 10 years, the tax rates were relatively stable. The Ward 1 mill rate didn't change at all. And the Ward 2 mill rate increased by 12%. By comparison, the mill rate in the neighboring Hamilton Township actually decreased 4%. So that was not bad. For 10 years, this fairness and equity had prevailed. But then, new councillors and new staff came on the scene. The operating agreement for Ward 2's Recreation Centre in Bewdley was terminated. Ward 2 was not to have a recreation facility any longer, while Ward 1 was to spend liberally improving and expanding its recreation facilities. Fairness and equity, they were forgotten. This, despite what previous councils had committed to. No longer was it considered fair for each ward to levy the monies needed for their ward. Council decided that everyone was to pay the same rate of tax. And it is noteworthy that in doing so, the municipality ignored Section 326 of the Municipal Act, which provides a mechanism for setting different tax rates in different parts of a municipality by recognizing how different service levels have different costs. It became unacceptable for Ward 2 councillors to use their double votes for taxes. And Ward 2 councillors were subjected to pressure to accept that their double votes no longer existed. Where did the fairness and equity go? Where did the exploitation come from? Since then, tax exploitation has become the norm. Ward 1 taxes have gone up 17%. Ward 2 taxes have skyrocketed by 110%. And what's happening next door in Hamilton Township? Hamilton Township tax rates remained unchanged. Raising Ward 2 tax rates by 6.5 times the increase in Ward 1 tax rates is unconscionable, unfair, and unnecessary. It amounted to an initial $1 million Ward 2 annual subsidy of Ward 1, and imagine what that subsidy amounts to today. And the unfairness, it continues to this day. Last November, Ward 2 councillors were told by senior municipal staff that they could not use their 2 votes when voting on this year's budget. If the Ward 2 votes had been properly counted, the budget, which called for yet another tax increase, would have been voted down. And what about this year's tax increase? Amid the current economic uncertainty and likelihood of massive job and income losses staring us all in the face, of all years, this is the year to lower taxes, not raise them. Yet this council has passed a tax increase budget, and they won't even tell us what its planned increase is to be. This is irresponsible and reprehensible. A staff report on the Ward 2 double votes was due in January and is 2 months overdue. It can only be concluded that the effort to get rid of the Ward 2 double votes is active and ongoing. And this year, for the first time, Ward 2 taxpayers will be paying towards the Ward 1 Christmas tree pickup program. Despite the fact that this service is not provided to Ward 2 residents. It is obvious that the spirit of the original amalgamation is not being respected. Since amalgamation, Ward 2 tax rates have gone from being less than 2/3 to 1.5 times what the rates are in Hamilton Township, while we have seen services actually being reduced in Ward 2. Since amalgamation, the mill rate for Ward 2 has risen 122%, while the mill rate for Ward 1 has risen 17%. Hamilton Township, in the same period, decreased 4.4%. How's that for fair and equitable? A study presented to council of this municipality 11 years ago, it's been referred to by my introducer. The rural redesign document at page 2, you will find, quote, the current situation of a small rural population amalgamated with a large urban population is unworkable. At page 1, bullet 2, the significant tax increases have reminded Ward 2 residents that amalgamation is not working. Amalgamation wasn't working at the time of that submission, and it's not working today. The amalgamation that we agreed to is broken. The unfair and unjust exploitation of the Ward 2 community must end. We are calling for a future where fairness and equality prevail. And you have a choice. You can fix it, or you can forget it. Given the opportunity, Ward 2 can and will look after itself. There is to be no more arbitrary imposition of taxes and Ward 2 subsidies of Ward 1 services. There is to be no more denying Ward 2 councillors their 2 votes. And going forward, there must be fair treatment of the Ward 2 councillors and the Ward 2 taxpayers. Why, for instance, don't you do as the transition board did and require at least 1 vote from both wards for a council decision to pass? Worth some thought, don't you think? You're undertaking to treat Ward 2 with fairness and equity, if that is to be your choice, will include the following. Ward 2 councillors will have their 2 votes on taxes, planning, and boundary changes. And Ward 2 taxes will be reduced this year to be equal to or less than those of Hamilton Township. The decision to fix or forget amalgamation is now in your hands. And we will return in 4 weeks at your next council meeting to learn what you have decided. Thank you and good night.
No clapping. No clapping. We do not allow clapping. We will recess for 5 minutes. We will be recessing for 5 minutes. Okay, if we could ask our delegation just to come back to the microphone so that we can take some questions and comments from the council table. John, would you like to also join, or okay, he's going to take it on. Okay, and if you could just turn the microphone again, just so that we can hear you clearly.
I thought you were asking me.
Yes, if you could just turn it on. Yeah, okay,
on.
good. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for bringing the concerns to this council table. And now we will go around and ask councillors for comments and questions. But before we do so, I'd like to ask our CAO and our Director of Corporate Services just to clarify a couple of things that were raised in your presentation. One is around the staff report on the Ward 2 double votes being due in January. In fact, the direction to do the report was given to staff in January. It was not due in January, so it is not overdue. And I'm going to ask the Director of Corporate Services just to clarify the direction that was given and the timelines around the report.
Thank you. So we received direction on this first during budget deliberations in December. In January, Council passed a resolution directing staff to prepare that report, including a summary of the history, including a legal review of the transition board order where it stands today. I met with yourself, Mr. Angus. We had anticipated being able to provide this in March. There was never a deadline or a ETA provided on the report by council or an expectation of when that would be provided. I can say we've gone through the legal process to review the material, and we expect to present the report to council on May 6th, Committee of the Whole first, and that is the timeline for the report.
Thank you. I can only respond by saying that during the meeting just referred to, I was told that the report was due on January the 6th, in January, and you said at that point it probably would be February or March. That's where my comment came from. What more can I do?
In fact, you said that the staff report on the Ward 2 double votes was due in January and is 2 months overdue. So I think we just it's good to get some of the timelines clarified, because I know the staff is working on moving forward with the report and getting not only separate legal opinions to inform that report, but also an opinion from the responsible ministry. So they are working very diligently on that. And another point that I'd like our CAO to clarify, and this again from the presentation, this year for the first time, Ward 2 taxpayers will be paying toward the Ward 1 Christmas tree pickup program, despite the fact that this service is not provided to Ward 2 residents. And I'd just like our CAO to clarify that.
Sure. Through the mayor, just as a point of clarification, is there are 3 special services that Ward 2 residents do not pay, and one of those is the Christmas tree pickup.
Thank you for that.
It being my understanding that as a result of the budget deliberations, staff made a recommendation that since it was such a small amount, it wasn't worth considering as a separate special service.
That's
And sorry.
Henceforth, it was not going to be a special service.
Yes, Director.
if I could respond to that. I do believe that was part of staff's presentation of the 2025 budget. Ultimately, council maintained the special service being Christmas tree pickup for Ward 2. So it might have been staff, the Director of Finance's recommendation, seeing that I think, if memory serves, it's an annual amount just over $3,000, but council looked to maintain that as a special service for Ward 1. Ward 2 does not and never has paid for Christmas tree pickup.
Good.
And I just wanted to point out those 2 things. And now let's turn it over to all the councillors. I'm going to just start from the outside and move in. So I'll start with Councillor Darrell and then move on to Councillor Les and so forth.
Thanks everybody for coming in. Recognize a lot of you from the town halls I've been having. Taxes are a big issue, obviously, for all of us, and affordability is a main one. I think, Ian, to answer your question, I can't speak for everyone at the table. I think the general consensus, we do not want to see division in Port Hope. I think fixing Port Hope is where we need to be headed, and that should be our idea. And I think that needs, my opinion, I think that needs to come from a third party source. I don't think we should burden staff with that workload to do that. And I think we need the nonpartisan of a third party to look after that and see what the outcome would be moving forward.
Good suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Darrell. Moving on to Councillor Les.
Well, good to see you again, Mr. Angus. Haven't seen you in quite a while.
Is that good or bad?
Well, it's great. Great both ways. I had the privilege of coming on to council in 2014. So we sort of picked up the ball that was rolling either towards us or away from us from the 213 announcements that council had made at the time. And most of us that had come in at that time were about as green as the grass is starting to become. And so we had a huge learning curve. Very interested in what you've given us in a historical sense of what has occurred and what your opinions of what has occurred and the numbers. I there was a couple things that I don't want to get into a debate, but one of the issues brought up was the issue of low-level radiation waste interest, the funds that are allocated to the rural community. Are you in agreement that they are now being treated fairly in your estimation?
At the time, council made a decision to use 80% of the interest earned on the Ward 2 LRW fund to reduce taxes, the tax burden in Ward 2. Since then, that approximate amount has been used to reduce taxes in Ward 2.
Thank you. Now, my point, and I've been hammering at this for 10 years, is that I think that's not a very good use of the money to allocate it the way it is being allocated to reduce taxes in the rural community, because the big benefactors are the utility companies and the big landowners in the in that portion, because they pay the highest share of taxes, they get the highest share of rebates. I would rather see the rural community come together and say, okay, we get about $350,000 a year on this interest. Let's spend it on something for us. And the us, in my estimation, should be with the fact that we're now putting daycare into Canton, and that should be operational in the summer, that we could really use a day camp in that area. And $350,000 would be more than sufficient to get you off the ground and running for a day camp, a la what they did in Cobourg at the Y for their outdoor facility. So it's just something that maybe you should think about as a community and start building up your own resources. But that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Les. Would you like to respond to that, Dan?
Maybe that would be a good use for the other monies coming from that fund.
Sorry, which other money? The 20%?
I'll talk to you about it in 4 weeks.
Okay,
Thank you.
side deal, okay?
Councillor Adam.
So look at this room. This doesn't happen very often. I don't know how many times you guys have been here in council, but this amount of people coming to a council meeting doesn't happen very often. So clearly, we've got some issues to fix up here. This is democracy at its best. This is what we want to see. We want to see you saying, hey, you're doing something wrong. Not that it was us. Let's be honest. This stuff happened, what was the amalgamation, 24 years ago? Yeah, and then the tax reallocation, what was that, 11 or 12 years ago? So it was before our time, but we're here, and now it's on us. And I appreciate everyone being here and letting us know how you feel so that we can work on fixing this. Because clearly, from this room, we have some work to do. But thank you, everyone, for coming out. Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. I don't really want to comment too much on it just because there's a lot of information to absorb. I don't think that it's appropriate to just come out and say some random things. I'm going to go through this a lot more. I've read through every council meeting from the tax reallocation, the 10% phase-in I've read all 304 pages of all those council meetings, but there's a lot more research for me to do before I can publicly say certain things. So, but anyways, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Adam.
I just would like to thank you for those comments and to reiterate what I said at the beginning. They are the speakers tonight.
Councillor Todd.
Right. Thank you very much for being here and for the presentation. And again, thank you to everyone for coming forward and raising your comments and concerns. I value the institutional knowledge that you have, Mr. Angus, on this topic, and you have some lived history and lived experience in this matter. One of the things that I would find valuable as we go forward, and I agree with Councillor Darrell that there needs to be some investigation, possibly from a third party to pull some of this forward. But I would find it helpful if you could, after this meeting at a later date, bring forward some of the details between what you had put in your presentation. So, for example, in the early part of the presentation, you gave us the history of how this all came about. I would find it valuable if you could point us towards the documents that were available during that time. At the end of your presentation, you talked about the services that have been reduced. And I think it would be helpful to have the list of, or a short list of those services, simply because then we can make sure that we're addressing the exact concerns along with those services. If they've been reduced, maybe some of them are reduced and people don't care. And it's like, hey, they're off, it's gone. Some of them are, okay. Oh, I'm just pointing it out that it was brought forward that services were.
Can we just please give
Yeah, sorry.
Councillor Attridge a
I would like
chance
to finish my questioning, if it's okay. Yeah. So any details that you can give on that, I think would be helpful as we go into that.
I would be pleased at any time to accommodate you. You just need to get in touch with us and we'll get it in motion.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So first I want to begin by thanking everybody for coming tonight. I had mentioned in that last meeting at the Hub to please come here and make your requests, make your feelings known here. You have 2 rural councillors. Everybody else here are your councillors as well. And often I feel, and maybe I'm speaking out of line here, but when the discussion of weighted vote comes up, my feeling is that you don't feel heard. So you're resorting to that double vote. You shouldn't have to wait and hope that your 2 councillors have that double vote to be heard. That voice should be heard by everybody. And I feel, when I sit here, and this is how I feel, sometimes I do not feel heard. I feel it's me rambling on and not being heard. And that's how I feel. So I can understand how you feel. And resorting to that weighted vote is one mechanism to feel heard. So hopefully we'll get an answer to that, but more so, hopefully you will be heard without having to use that tool. I think the fact, and I just want to thank, I'm encouraged by what I've been hearing up here so far, and thank Adam for his comment, is that we have a huge number of people from our community here today. And regardless of what it is about, whether they're here about salmon fishing, homelessness, Walton Street, whatever the matter is, if this many people show up, it is something that we have to address. It is our responsibility to address what the feelings are, what the problem is. And I feel that often we resort to the amalgamation order, we resort to looking at mill rates and those type of things to justify why we feel this way. But really what it is when you open up your tax bill, how do you feel? And you don't feel good about that. That is what the problem is the tax bills are too high. And that's what we have to address. The amalgamation orders, I keep hearing different opinions and different interpretations, and I feel that we will never get anywhere if we keep just looking at those documents. We need to find out, what does our community want? What is affordable? How do we get there? That's what we need to work on. So thank you for that. And I hope everybody here has that interest, because I don't want to keep revisiting this year after year after year after council after council after council. We need to get that answer. When we leave here today, receiving this for information to me is inadequate. We cannot just receive for information as thank you, and we may ignore this. We may not, I don't know, but that doesn't give any action. So I don't have a motion tonight, but I think that we cannot let this go. I'm just going to ask one question to the clerk. Procedurally, can you just, before I finish, can you please clarify to the people in the room the question period as well as the comment period and what order that they will take, just so they know how that will work, if you don't mind?
Yes, absolutely, Deputy Mayor. So in accordance with Procedure Bylaw 80/2024, which was passed by Council late last year, we now have a public comment period during a council meeting, as well as a question period. The purpose of the public comment period is for members of the public to provide comments on a matter that is on the agenda for that meeting. So in this scenario, for example, people have the option to provide comments with respect to any item that is on tonight's agenda, the delegation, any other item that is on the agenda. The procedure bylaw lays out very specific rules with respect to the public comment period. For example, people do have 2 minutes to provide their comments. We urge you to be respectful. If there are, a group of people that have similar comments, we encourage you to find a representative to provide those comments. There are sign-in sheets available, which you are required to fill out if you would, want to make a public comment. The public comment period also lasts only 20 minutes, and the purpose of that time limit is so that council can continue its business during the meeting. And council always has the option, as per the procedure bylaw, to extend the speaking time of each individual member making a comment, or extend the meeting time of the public comment period, which would have to be done through a motion of council. So that is the purpose of the public comment period. And then following that, we also have a question period that is available towards the end of the meeting. This is similar to the question periods that we have in the past. It is an open question period. It is related to matters of municipal influence. So you can come, you can ask your question. You'd have to state your name for the record, which would be recorded. The general nature of your question period would be recorded as part of the minutes. And it is a question that you would be asking your council. So it would not be a question directed to staff. It would not be related to operational matters, as those would be addressed outside of the council meeting. I hope that answers your question, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, it does. And I just want to set the expectation that during question period, we may not be able to answer those questions here today. So if those are recorded, that we will follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'm going to turn it over now to Councillor Clare.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Mr. Angus. Looks like there's.
Could you just turn your microphone on again? Thank you.
May I interject and put forward what has been said to me? Thank you. The question was, I think, whether the comment period pertained to just this presentation and how it was different from the question period at the end of
Yes,
the meeting.
thank you for that. And the clerk will clarify that. Please go ahead.
Yes, so the public comment period is for the members of the public to provide a comment on any item that is on tonight's agenda, including the delegation tonight. And so that is the purpose of that. The question period is open. It's at the end of the meeting. And during the question period, it doesn't have to be an item that's on tonight's agenda. It could be any item that is under the municipal influence.
Thank you. That's helpful clarification. Yes, Councillor Clare.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Mr. Angus. My question is about, I think, some of the assertions I think that were part of your presentation tonight that I think are really sort of crucial to the conclusions that you're making around amalgamation. And I think you've done, I said, echo Councillor Todd, and that the historical information in terms of how we got there and leading really up until 2014, I think is very, is well researched. And we've also had the opportunity of reviewing that 300 plus page documentation from the municipal records as well. What I think, though, requires a little bit more analysis is the current state of 2025 when it comes to taxation. Because there are, of course, a lot of variables even in that last 10 years that are not related to amalgamation, but related to other pressures that municipalities across the province and, in fact, across the country have been facing with respect to the costs of services and infrastructure and that. So I think the key questions that I have that I feel I would need to answer in order to be able to assess the requests that you're making and the conclusions that you've drawn relate to one, which I think is a very important question, is how the question of does the investment of funds into the services in Ward 2, how does that compare to the amount of tax levy that is collected in Ward 2? To your point about equity, and in fact, whether in reality Ward 2 residents are paying for what you get, or are you, as you've suggested, subsidizing Ward 1? And I don't think that we any of us have a clear answer on that, and I think that's a very important question. I'd be interested in knowing from you whether that would change, how that might influence your thinking about the topic if it was shown, for example, that Ward 2 taxes were in fact paying for the services that you get in Ward 2. And the second question I have is around, I think there's some assumptions being made that I can't assess because they're about another municipality. I haven't had an opportunity to delve into the financial records of Hamilton Township to the extent that I think we would probably need to understand whether that is an apples to apples comparison when it comes to the mill rate. I did go down a bit of a rabbit hole earlier this week once in relation when I saw that comparison of the mill rates. And I think there's some important questions there as well in terms of why their mill rate is what it is. And it may not be the obvious answer. So I'm curious to know, I think from what you know now, obviously you have a very strong opinion about what's needed to rectify the situation, but would that information potentially influence your thinking if that information did not support some of the assumptions that have underpinned some of the arguments this evening?
Firstly, I'm going to direct my response.
Sorry, can we just have quiet because it's really hard to hear Mr. Angus's answers?
Direct my response to the mayor. Do we have this hall until midnight? If so, I will start my answer to Claire's question.
We have no time limits.
In fairness, you ask very good questions, and the answers, of course, are along the lines of we follow the facts. Thank you very much, Brian. How did you notice? And if it turns out, as has recently been postulated, that the average household assessment in Ward 2 is less than the average household assessment in Ward 1, that might change things. But the last time we looked, the average household assessment in Ward 2 was 146% of the assessments in Ward 1. So we're already paying a whole lot more tax on our houses just because. And I'm not blaming you. That's MPAC. But them's the facts. And I follow the facts. And as far as following Hamilton, you'll find that they are very well run financially at the moment. Not too much to complain about if you look into what they're doing. So they're a good comparator to Hope Township, with whom we had joint use agreements for recreation facility. We had working agreements for our fire department. We had joint use agreements for our bylaw enforcement and inspection. We had all sorts of commonalities. So the brief answer is there are a lot of similarities between Ward 2 and what's adjacent to it, Hamilton Township. So go for a drive around. You won't notice there's a boundary. It's all the same. So therein is the brief answer. But there's more available if you wish.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from around the table before I? Yes, Councillor, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to just take that. I'll make a few comments and return back to you. And actually, I may ask our deputy mayor to chair the meeting in just a few minutes as well. So thank you very much for coming forward with all this information. And I concur with all of my councillors that we so value and appreciate your institutional and historic knowledge of amalgamation and the issues that you're bringing forward. I think all of us understand very, very deeply that there are so many folks, not only in Port Hope, but across the entire county, that are struggling with the basics of life. I see it here in our municipality, and as deputy warden of the county, I see it right across our community, and things are not getting better. We are at a stress point. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Angus, in your presentation, whether or not you see a role in county in this situation that Ward 2 finds itself in. I noticed that you didn't make any mention of county, but we do know that a significant part of our taxes do go to the county, and I'm just wondering if you've had an opportunity to follow some of the decisions that have been made at the county table in terms of what is being done as action items to address some of the increasing costs and tax increases.
Let me be clear. The municipal taxes that we pay are nothing to do with the county taxes, which we also pay. And we are here tonight to talk about municipal taxes, not county taxes. I know they're separate. I know they have separate responsibilities. I know their budgets and their responsibilities have expanded tremendously. 25 years is a good long time. But there's no excuse for raising our taxes 122%. And yours in Ward 1 go up 17%. And I'll just throw this one in. Of the 17%, 16.5% of that was done by you, this council. Look it up.
Thank
And
you.
so there we are.
Yeah.
You have a choice,
Yeah. Thank
and
you
we
for,
expect to hear that choice. You
And
make that
it-
choice in the next 4 weeks.
and thank you for that. And the reason I do bring up the county, and I take your point that we're talking about a historic increase at the municipal level. But there have been some very deep and serious conversations about the duplication of personnel, the duplication of services, and the need for a reorganization to ensure that there isn't a wastage of money between what the lower tiers are doing and the county. So It's just a point because when we are talking about taxes, there's the educational component, the county component, and the municipal component. So it's just about what's happening right now under the duress of the tax increases that have been seen. But I do agree with you that it's not enough to take forward what you have presented today for information, that what is required on our part is action. And so I'm going to turn the chair over to the deputy mayor because I would like to put a motion on the table, which is different than receiving for information. But before I do so, I know the deputy mayor wanted to make another comment.
Thank you. So just two things. So just to continue with this conversation, I just want to also make a point that I have heard comments during my 6 years on council, that the group that we have here, just comments like, Ward 2 needs to get over it. Ward 2 needs to get on with things. Ward 2 needs to quit complaining. I just want to make the point that Ward 1 is also upset about taxes. I hear the same from Ward 1. So we have a responsibility up here at the council table and in staff, among staff, to really sharpen our pencils when it comes to the budget and get creative. And we need to stop marginalizing our communities and separating them with this narrative, with this voice, that these comments that we make. I'm not saying any one particular person, but I hear it all the time. So we need to move away from that. That's one point I want to make. The other thing you did bring up in your, and I just want to mention it now, you did mention not announcing the tax increase this year. And this was the first time that this has been done. And I couldn't agree with you more. We need to revisit that. This council has said we will be transparent. People need to know for various reasons. It's not a misunderstanding and not understanding the difference between blended and county and so on, variable and all that. People need to know it for renewing mortgages, for buying homes, for budgeting for their fixed income. So we need to rethink that. I don't think it's fair at all that we're withholding that information. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So at this point, if you would like to.
Yes, so
take
I will
over.
ask if there's anything more from anyone here. Go ahead.
Okay. So back to your call for action. Mr. Angus, I am going to propose a motion for this council to consider, and I believe that the clerk has the wording that we can share, and I'm yes. And I'm happy to read it out, and this is a starting point for conversation and reflection for the council. Whereas the council recognizes that the rural area has specific and unique issues and challenges which require thoughtful review and consideration, and whereas the council acknowledges the potential for positive future opportunities around Wesleyville and the Canton Hub, particularly in light of the newly created childcare center, county-led broadband project, and other opportunities for growth and development in the rural ward. And whereas there is a desire to explore industry growth opportunities and strategies to strengthen rural infrastructure, now therefore be it resolved that the council refers the delegation from the rural focus group to staff for further review and discussion, and that council directs staff to prepare a report to be presented at a future council meeting outlining the following: historical background on tax allocation between the rural and urban area and the financial implications on the municipality as a whole, and opportunities for enhanced community engagement with the rural area, including the potential to develop a future-focused rural innovations group comprising of residents, businesses, and community organizations that support sustainable growth and development in the rural area, and that the report provide further information on opportunities for partnerships for enhancing community well-being, economic development, and infrastructure enhancement. The point in this motion is that staff address the issues and concerns that have been brought forward in the delegation this evening, but also recognizing that one of the ways in which some of these things can be addressed for the future is through economic development and growth, because too much of our municipality has relied historically and contemporarily on the backs of residential taxpayers, because we haven't had the right focus on industry and business and growth to offset some of those things. So it is imperative that the issues that you have raised are addressed, and it's also imperative to think forward on how we can move from here into the future. So it's within this spirit that I'm bringing this forward as a point of consideration or a motion of consideration for the council to discuss.
With respect, you're missing the point.
I'm sorry, I forgot that I was sharing it.
There is no reference
Sorry,
anywhere in that motion about fairness, equity, and respect.
okay, so I'm just gonna, sorry, I just want to make sure I keep control here. So I will, this is a motion brought forward by the mayor. I'm going to ask for a seconder first before we have any comments. Anybody second this? Seconded by Councillor Pearson. So before I would, I don't know, point of order, are we able to ask for comments from the delegation? No, okay. So that would not be,
Madam Chair, it is your prerogative as the chair, whether you wish to engage the delegation with respect to any comments. However, it is my understanding that, question and answer period between delegation has concluded and the motion is on the floor. So any discussion would be related to the motion that is on the floor.
okay, so I will ask, we have a mover, the mayor moved it, Adam seconded it, and I will ask if there's any discussion from the rest of council. Councillor Todd.
Thank you very much. I would like to propose a friendly amendment to this, which would be at the paragraph that starts with that council directs staff. And the friendly amendment would be that council directs staff to prepare a report with the help of external resources if needed. To be presented at a future council. Just to give the ability, because our staff may not have all the resources, time, capability to do that, they should have the ability to reach out to external resources if necessary, would be the logic behind that.
Okay, thank you. So that is noted. Any other comments? The mayor, please.
So I want to be very clear that the intention here was actually not to miss the point, but actually to address it head on by saying that this motion would direct staff to the delegation and the content of the delegation from the rural focus group for review and for discussion, and to prepare a report that would take into account the historic background on tax allegation and to look at the financial implications moving forward. So it is not skirting it. It is actually addressing it head on. It is not my intention at all with this motion to ignore all the content of the materials you have submitted and the content of the presentation that you've put forward to us, or to skirt the challenge that you have put in front of us as a council. I want to be 100% clear about that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council? Councillor Clare.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting motion. I specifically support the first bullet there, because I think, as I mentioned in my question to you, Mr. Angus, I think understanding that history and looking at, as you say, the facts and the evidence around it, I think is really important before we're able to make any decisions. And I hope everyone in the room can appreciate, you know, I don't think you would want your council to make decisions on the basis solely of a delegation. We do need to fact check. We do need to go back and verify. We do need to validate our understanding of the information that's been shared with us tonight. So this is generally I see this as being a good approach in response to a delegation. As we've heard you, we're taking you seriously. We're going to direct staff to ensure we have all the information we need to properly understand and consider the requests and arguments that you've made tonight. My one concern about the motion is that I think that first one is a relatively easy report to compile. I know I've already looked at it myself. Some of this information, is even publicly available on our website. It just needs to be compiled. My concern is that the other two are a little bit more unwieldy. They're of bigger scope, and I wouldn't want the report on the taxation and rural. I assume that also implies rural spending as well, to be delayed because we're looking at too much in one report. So my request would be that we commission two separate reports, one that is looking at getting answers around the financial picture so that we can assess tonight's delegation, and then a second report that is that futures piece. Yeah.
So, good. I'm just going to ask for order. So before we put any motion or any amendments, any other comments from council? Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I do. We're not the enemy. Okay? Let's get that straight. We're all here. We're listening. If things have been done badly in the past, we'll try and correct them. But, don't come to us and say, you got 3 weeks or we're on the highway, because that ain't going to work.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to ask for order again. Any other comments from the council table? So I will give my comment, and Mr. Angus, your comment did not influence what I'm going to say. When I heard this, won't be a popular comment from, I think, the council table. My thoughts were, this is missing the point. It's completely missing the point of, there's parts of it in there. If we scroll up, if you can scroll up, the comment of Wesleyville, Canton Hub, the childcare, county-led broadband, to me is out of context. Yes, Wesleyville is 15 or more years away. What happens to the tax bills in the meantime? I, as a rural resident, am not looking for industrial growth in the rural area. To your point, Mr. Angus, when I drive to Hamilton Township, that is what I'm looking for. Basic services, basic way of life. A way to have a minimal tax bill that delivers what I need to live out there. I don't want a tax bill that is huge, but you have this, and this. That's not what I want. That's not what I'm living out there for. So when I see this, there's some parts of it that sound okay. Investigating how we got here, how we can fix it, but coming up with an economic development plan that could take decades, to me, doesn't resolve the issue now. That's where I am. So I'll ask for amendments, but I'm also going to ask for a recorded vote on this motion. Go ahead, Mayor.
I think we're still discussing the motions, so I think there's still an opportunity to make some amendments based on some of the comments that we received from around the table. And I think actually, I don't think there's a need for a recorded vote, because I think we'd like to because I think we would like to probably get to a place where we can pass a motion that sits well with everybody around the council table. I would hope that we could get to that place so that we don't have to divide ourselves with a recorded vote. Now, that said, there's just something that I do want to say about Hamilton Township in your comments. I don't know if folks here are aware that Hamilton Township at the moment has a serious water issue problem. and that the water that Hamilton Township receives to at least 200 homes comes from the town of Cobourg through a pipe across the 401 that is aging and that needs to be replaced. And there is no redundancy plan for that. And to actually put in a twin track to bring water into that community, which does not have water, is going to be a minimum of $10 million on the tax levy. And that's something that is current and being discussed. So I think we have to be very careful in saying always that the grass is somehow greener somewhere else, because as I think was pointed out by a number of our council members, that all municipalities are really struggling with many infrastructure challenges that we have. But going back to the actual motion that we've got on the table and some of the amendments that have been made, I'm happy as the person who put forward this motion to reduce it to whatever content makes most sense at this point in time, and have something that we can all agree to that is responding to what we've heard tonight, and we don't need to divide ourselves through a recorded vote. So, Councillor Mink, if there was something that you thought resonated with you in this motion, then maybe why don't you pull that out or make some suggestions how that this can be further amended so that we land in a place that we can all agree to.
Thank you. So I would take out, and whereas the council acknowledges that entire paragraph, to me, feels very grandstanding. It sounds like this is what we're doing for you. I think it's out of context. The second paragraph, and whereas the desire to explore industrial growth opportunities and strategies to strengthen rural infrastructure, I understand where that is coming from, but I don't think that is what this group here is prioritizing at this time. Therefore, be resolved. Okay, so historical background on tax allocation between the rural and urban area and the financial implications of the municipality as a whole is fine. Opportunities to enhance community engagement with the rural area. That one is fine. And again, that last paragraph, the economic development and infrastructure enhancement, again, I understand the concept that economic development helps diversify the tax base. I understand that, but that is not what this group is here for asking today. They're not asking for an economic development plan today. That is almost secondary. That comes after resolving these feelings. Yes, go ahead, Clerk.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, in terms of procedure, there is a motion that is on the floor that has been moved by Mayor Hankivsky and has been seconded by Councillor Pearson. So, in the event that an alternative motion needs to be put forward, we have a couple of options. We can make an amendment to the motion that is on the floor, or the originating the person who has put the motion forward, being Mayor Hankivsky, can withdraw her motion and then put forward a new motion that is reflective of the comments of this council. It is up to you.
Thank you. So before we move to that, I just want to make the comment about the recorded vote, is that a recorded vote shouldn't be looked at as a threat. It just tells the community how everybody stands. And it's really unfortunate that it's taken as something that is negative. It could be very positive. So I'm not withdrawing it. I still believe that there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of people here today, and I think it's a valid request, and I will be continuing. Yes. So sorry, was there a hand? Go ahead, Councillor Thoms.
I would just like to go back to my comments before. I think the way we're going with the motion, I think it's capturing what we're all kind of looking for with respect to the delegation tonight, moving forward with a focus at like another rural group for a future development. I just think with all the history that's taken place over the last 25 years, it really needs to come from a third party, the report.
Thank you. And Councillor Thomas, did you want to add that in there? Is there a
Councillor Todd
Oh,
did add it
sorry.
in, but
Oh, it is.
I don't,
Okay, you were just
how would
emphasizing.
that affect, maybe this is a question for staff, how would that affect timeline as a staff report with help from a third party, or just a wash your hands of it and send it to a third party?
It's a difficult question to answer. I think this is primarily going to be a report coming our finance department. I think external resources would help. I think the ability to procure.
Sorry,
Okay,
I'll
I'm
just
gonna
ask
keep
for a point of order.
answering the question. The ability to procure an external party to do a review of our tax allocation is certainly something we'd have to take into consideration through council direction here tonight. We're responding to this council direction sort of on the spot here this evening. So I can't give you a better answer than that. External resources typically help us move things along quicker.
Thank you. And I'll ask for the Councillor Todd.
Thank you very much. And my question is actually to Councillor Darrell. Did you want to change some of that wording to reflect more of what you were saying? I was trying to capture what you were indicating about a third party when I said prepare a report with help of external resources if needed, just to give them the opportunity as they get into it. But I'm happy to alter some of that language if you feel it needs to be altered, to be more specific, or capture the essence of what you were looking for.
My thoughts on it. I think at this point, for like clarity and transparency, it needs to come from a third party. So I think we need to direct staff to send this off to a third party.
So to take it out of staff's hands altogether, just to hire a third party.
Yes.
Okay, and the mayor, go ahead.
And just in terms of, I'm liking how this is shaping up. I think that at some point we're going to have to, if staff will come back and suggest what the cost will be of that, or if that's something that we need to include in this motion in terms of the resources that we would need to set aside for this. But one point of just clarification back to you, Deputy Mayor, is Wesleyville is not 15 years out, because we've received $1 million already to the municipality that's going to be directly affecting our tax levy. And those are resources that we can be using for exactly this kind of work.
Is there any other comments? So I'll just make my point now, I guess, about Wesleyville. I'm hesitant to use Wesleyville as a narrative in our decision making. I have a past coming from North Pickering, where the federal airport was proposed before my time. It came about again in the 90s. And is there a federal airport in North Pickering now? No, there is not. So I'm really hesitant to use, and I'm not saying Wesleyville is not going to happen, but I will not be using that as the premise of most of my decision making at this point, just from my own experiences and watching that. I think we need to make decisions as well that's independent from that. There's a lot of changes of government from every level, a lot of other external factors that play into Wesleyville. And I think we need to be mindful of that. We know it's there, but putting it in every motion for the next however many years, we shouldn't have that as a common practice. We know it's there, but it shouldn't be at the forefront of our decision making, in my opinion. Councillor Claire.
Now that we're moving in the direction where this is going to go to a third party, I'm going to be a little pedantic and ask that the language also include specific reference to spending between words, not just taxation. When it's our own staff, sometimes we can have these wordings, but because staff are in the room while we're having the conversation, you know that it's going to be included. But if it's going to a third party, it's going to have to be very explicit, because that's the other side of the coin as well.
Thank you. And may I just ask for, just to rebuttal that, when we say spending, it's council who chooses what's spent. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Okay. Yeah, okay. And the mayor, you had a point?
I do. Back to, sorry, I just really feel like we need to clarify this. I was not proposing at all that Wesleyville is happening. I'm just pointing out that we received money for further discussion and engagement and growth opportunities. And so that is money that is available to us to actually put towards exactly this kind of report. So it has nothing to do with whether or not Wesleyville is going to happen. It just means that we don't have to put this on the tax levy to actually do a fulsome and comprehensive job with this kind of examination. And so that was really the point that I was trying to make.
Thank you. And I guess a question I would have for the CAO along that line is there a way, knowing we have this fund of projects and initiatives that come forward, we typically don't say coming from this reserve or that reserve when we're up here discussing things on a regular basis. So is there a way that we can kind of have transparency of using that fund or where our decision-making funds come from?
I think that has sort of what has been the intent of this with relation to the fact that the OPG funds are available for growth readiness, right? In order to be prepared and ready when that project starts to move forward. And because that project is moving forward in the rural area, it makes sense that it's sort of referenced as being an item that's available to be reviewed. There's going to be major implications for the rural folks moving forward with the scope of that project. So I don't think it's so much in relation to just saying like, because Wesleyville and the OPG project are moving forward, we should just be using those funds. It has a direct impact on the rural residents because it's in the rural area. They're looking at co-located industries within the rural area. So I think that's the intent of what was sort of acknowledged in that paragraph. And again, I think it's unfortunate that the lens that's been provided throughout the discussion right now from council has been around the fact that we're missing the mark or other folks are missing the mark. I think council needs to stand sort of united on a front that we all want a resolution to benefit the rural residents as well as council, as well as the urban folks as well. I think this I've only been here a little less than 3 months. And that's all I've heard while I've been here is about the rural urban divide. And I think that it's a little bit disheartening and sad. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of folks in the room and they're here because it's important to them. We're here to listen because it's important to us. And I think we have an opportunity to move things forward in a positive direction. And I think that takes equal partnership from all the folks in this room, from the presentation, from staff, and from council. So we're hearing you. We know it's a contentious item. We certainly understand that. It's a difficult decision, and it's difficult as well for council to navigate. So I would just like to hope that there's a little bit of kindness in that and that we can get to a positive something at the end, and that's what we're proposing to do.
So thank you for that clarification. So with that said, I think using Wesleyville funds in there is fine. It wasn't presented that way. It was looped in with the hub and broadband and so on. So if somebody here wanted to make an amendment and saying using the funds of the Wesleyville, however that's framed, to fund the third party, I'm fine with that if someone wants to amend that to say that specifically.
Yeah, I'll amend to say that we use the Wesleyville funds to fund the third party.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm interested in your comment and question, but we can't. Sorry. Okay, thank you. So thank everybody for your patience. So is there anything else that anybody would like to amend with this motion? And then, okay, go ahead.
Or I was just going to suggest that maybe we read it in its entirety, just so we know what we currently have.
Yes, we can do that. And I was just going to ask again, so is there an option to, like you said, just to retract what was originally moved, and then we'll move this? Is that right?
That is correct. So the option is to either make an amendment, or the mayor can withdraw her motion, and then a new motion may be presented that is reflective of the changes that are noted up here.
Thank you. And I think the Director of Corporate Services had a comment.
I just wanted to seek some clarity. I understand the third parties being used to review the tax allocation. I just want to make sure it's council certain or giving the direction that the third party to be hired is also going to be reviewing the point about opportunities for enhanced community engagement with the rural area, including the potential to develop a future-focused rural innovations group comprising of residents, businesses, and community organizations that support sustainable growth and development in the rural area. Is that the intention of council?
Does somebody have a comment? Councillor Thomas?
I don't think so. I think we're looking for the third party to mainly focus on, we're looking for the third party group to really focus on the taxation part of it.
Thank you. So then I would ask the question, the second portion of the relationship, what would be the direction for that? Go ahead, Councillor Clare.
Is it possible, do we want to just simplify this and have one motion that speaks specifically to the report that the third party will prepare on the financial piece, and leave the other piece for, we can always bring forward a motion about that at a subsequent meeting? Yeah.
Thank you. So I have Mr. Angus here waving his hand. So I'll ask if you have.
Thank you.
I think as the chair, I can.
You were missing a point.
Can I not? Sorry,
We
as the
need
chair. Sorry, 1 second, Mr. Angus. I'm being told here that it's out of order, but I thought that as the chair, I had the right to ask. Can I?
The mayor, Madam Chair, what was the question?
So I thought you said that typically the delegation wouldn't comment, but as the chair, I could ask for clarity, because it is the delegation and we want to make sure we captured the ask of the delegation. So that's why I'm asking Mr. Angus if this is what his intention was, but council is telling me, no, I cannot. Is that correct?
No, it is to the subject of the ruling of the chair.
Okay, so I'll ask.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You need input from the rural community. That's missing out of this approach. And it's not adequate without it. First, you've got to decide what.
Scroll up. Scroll down.
Sorry, so I think it is in
Right there.
the rural focus group and staff for further review and discussion. And I just want to make a point that we are going through strategic planning process, and this is an opportunity as well to have those discussions in that place as well. It's just starting, so. So we have that at that. Is that suitable in that line item, or no?
I think you have to recognize all the people that have come here to speak. And they're speaking tonight to saying things must change. And if you don't understand this, you need to put a mechanism in there that will allow you to do so.
Okay, so yes, I think when we say refer the delegation from rural community group, we're asking for participation from the rural focus group. Is that correct?
Then that should be in the motion.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you very much. My question would be for Director Gilmer, and it's really just to help me find uniformity. So if we've already put forward the idea that it would go to a third party, would that statement then be, we now refer the delegation from the rural focus group to third party instead of to staff for further review? I'm just thinking of mechanics of this, and if it's neither here nor there, then I'll leave it. But I just want to make sure that we're being diligent about it.
I think staff have an appreciation for what council is telling us here tonight with respect to taking the delegation and the materials and potentially future discussions, those being referred to staff. We would then have to engage and procure a third party to do the work. Ultimately, it's going to be staff sort of providing that information with the rural focus group to the third party. I mean, we could wordsmith this to death, but I think there's an understanding by staff what council is looking for here this evening with the current proposed motion you have.
Councillor Clare?
I think it's also important for all of us to remember that this is one part of an ongoing conversation, right? And it's not started tonight. It's, this is a next step in that dialogue. But of course, when there's a report that's prepared, that report comes to council. It's on the agenda. It's publicly posted, and there will be ample opportunity when we're reviewing and deliberating about the contents of that report for all residents to come and be part of that conversation at that time in the future as well. So it's not just about, this is not, a one and done, right? This is, we will get a report that's going to raise more questions. It's going to give us more facts and evidence to carry on this dialogue and figure out where we go next from there.
Sorry, the mayor.
And just to follow up on what Councillor Clare was saying, I think it's really important to talk about this as an ongoing conversation and process. And so this is going to be an important piece of it, as is the staff report we've already agreed to having done. And then it will be equally important to talk about what are going to be the steps after this as part of our strategic planning process, and what other issues are going to be coming up in terms of the rural community, the priorities for health and well-being, for economic development, for infrastructure support, and all those next steps. These are all essential pieces to a larger puzzle. And as Councillor Clare said, it is definitely not a one and done, and it's an ongoing conversation.
Thank you. So can I ask if we read the motion in its entirety at this time?
So, Madam Chair, the only clarification that's required is, I think there was some discussion about the highlighted portion over there, whether that needs to stay or be removed from the report. So that's the only clarification I still require. Will that be part of the third-party report?
Yeah, I think that does maybe potentially capture what Mr. Angus is asking for, where we are getting residents, businesses, and community organizations in a group together. And the two comments that were just made, I do agree that we have movement now. We have a few motions regarding rural matters on the table. It's bringing it together and keeping track of it and delivering on that. So that's one of my concerns, is how do we bring this all together? So Rural Innovations Group, first time I'm hearing this, is this something that you had just kind of thought of in this moment? No? Okay.
I don't usually think about things in a moment. This is just all about the continuing conversation and trying to focus into the future. And just a second, connecting to where we are now, but also determining where the next steps might be. So that was the idea, but absolutely, whatever community engagement you're reading into that is definitely a part of it with all the various stakeholders.
Sorry, I didn't mean when I said thinking of in the moment. The Rural Innovations Group, to my knowledge, currently doesn't exist with the terms of reference and objectives and so on.
That's correct, Deputy Mayor. That's why in the original motion it was a direction to staff to come back to us with a report about what this might look like.
Okay, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you. So I think we're going around and around in circles right now, and we're not really getting anywhere. The whole point of the staff report is for us to then take a look at this more wholesomely. We don't need to be dealing, I will not make a decision tonight on an emotional decision. What I would like to see is this staff report to come forward, and then we can critique it. We will have the time available to take a look at it and see it and come to a good conclusion. So I'm going to ask for a point of order if we can just call the vote on this one.
Thank you. And I agree, but I think we also made the decision that we're going to sit here until we figure this out. And that's where we are today, is figuring out this motion. That was the request. So, and I did ask if we could read it in entirety, and then we were asking basically to go from there, which we were ready to vote.
Yep, I can read out the motion in its entirety. So with the understanding that the original motion has now been withdrawn and there is a new motion on the floor, which would require a mover and seconder, that motion will read as follows. Whereas the council recognizes that the rural area has specific and unique issues and challenges that require thoughtful review and consideration. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council refers the delegation from the rural focus group to staff for further review and discussion, and that council directs staff to hire a third party to prepare a report to be presented at a future council meeting outlining the following: historical background on tax allocation between the rural and urban area and the financial implications on the municipality as a whole, municipal rural versus urban spending, and opportunities for enhanced community engagement in the rural area, including the potential to develop a future-focused rural innovations group comprising of residents, businesses, and community organizations that support sustainable growth and development in the rural area, and that staff be authorized to use monies from the OPG Growth Readiness Funds to be utilized to fund the third-party consultation fees and report development.
Thank you. So with that, before comments, I'll ask if there's a mover and a seconder for that motion. Sorry.
Sorry, I don't think that that actually captures the conversation at the table. My understanding, and I think it was echoed by multiple people, that last paragraph not be included, because that is a very different scope of work that would require a very different kind of report, that we were going to scale it back to just focus on the financial piece. Yeah.
And Councillor Less?
Well, with that in mind, then you're going to let the council, the consultant, handle the whole report with no input from the rural group, which doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yes. So, okay. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Now,
Clerk?
want a voice?
Clerk? Sorry. I'll ask for the Director of Corporate Services. Did you have a comment?
Just to the point about the last portion there about opportunities for enhanced community engagement. I am reading this as a very separate from the tax review, tax allocation, and municipal rural versus urban spending. I am reading that as a separate direction. If that's the intention of council for both of those to be captured in one motion, I think that would be two different reports, which is fine. Council's given clarity that we can use an external party to review the first two items. That would be us writing a report with respect to the third. I would suggest that be removed from this particular motion. That does not exclude participation from the rural focus group or additional opportunities for participation with respect to the study. If council wants to address that as a separate motion tonight, that's fine. If council wants to defer that or just remove that for tonight and address that through the regular course of business, that would also be fine. But I am very much reading this mercifully for our Director of Finance, who's on a much needed vacation right now. He'll have to come back and take this upon himself. But I am reading that third portion as a completely separate item.
So yes, so thank you for that. So I would agree. So I think we already have the report coming from yourself, and then this is a financial review, and we can bring another motion forward next meeting when we have time to digest and maybe talk to members of our community regarding the second motion as far as participation from the community, which I think we're all seeing a lot of nodding heads here, which I think we agree is needed. Sorry, Les is shaking his head.
Why would we go to a separate motion when we have the whole thing in there? We all understand what it is. It's not a legal document. It's a document of understanding. And that's all we're trying to accomplish here. And we should never wordsmith in front of the public this type of motion.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate what Councillor Lessa said. I agree that the paragraph comes out. My understanding of this is this will come back, like, this is more of a fact-finding document so that we have the information, make some choices. We have a fiduciary responsibility to look into the information so that we can make proper choices. Then, once we have that, we can do a more fulsome plan of what we're going to do for it. That's my understanding of how, in under that auspice, I would get rid of that paragraph.
Thank you. And that's my understanding too. It's an objective party that's looking at it without input from anyone. They're looking at it objectively. Mayor?
And I would also just like to add that, of course, the third party looking at the factual information is looking at it because the voices of the community have come through the focus group, the presentation, and all the content that was received, which underpins the spirit of this motion.
Thank you. So I think with Councillor Pearson, before we lose him here, I'm sorry, the clerk is asking.
I would like, I think that before we get the mover and seconder, we would want to read out the motion
Okay.
before.
Could you read it once more, please?
Yes, please. Thank you. Whereas the council recognizes that the rural area has specific and unique issues and challenges which require thoughtful review and consideration, now therefore be it resolved that council refers the delegation from the rural focus group to staff for further review and discussion, and that council directs staff to hire a third party to prepare a report to be presented at a future council meeting outlining the following: historical background on tax allocation between the rural and urban area and the financial implications on the municipality as a whole, and municipal rural versus urban spending, and that staff be authorized to use monies from the OPG Growth Readiness Funds to be utilized to fund the third-party consultation fees and report development.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by the mayor, seconded by Claire, Councillor Claire. And the clerk, can you call the motion for that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So a recorded vote has been requested by Deputy Mayor Mink with respect to item 6.1. In accordance with Section 53 of Procedure Bylaw 80/2024, when a recorded vote is requested, all members present at the meeting shall vote unless otherwise prohibited by statute. I will call your name and you will provide me with a yes or no. And we will start in alphabetical order with Councillor Andrews.
No.
Councillor Attridge.
Yes.
Councillor Holloway Wadwani.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mink.
Yes.
Councillor Pearson.
Yes.
Councillor Toms.
Yes.
Mayor Henkivsky.
Yes.
So that is 6 yes votes versus 1 no vote. The motion is carried.
Thank you. So normally I'd pass the chair back over to the mayor, but I think it's time for a break. And she will assume that. So I thank everybody for your patience. When we come back, I believe it's a comment period at that point. We'll come back at, how much time do you need? 10 minutes? So 8:42.
Okay, everyone, we are now going to start with our public comment period, item number 7. As per our procedural bylaw, the purpose is for a public comment period to bring forward members of the public to provide comments on items that are on tonight's agenda. If you have any questions related to an item, please wait until the question period, which is later in the meeting this evening. And I request that you keep your comments brief and respectful as per our bylaw. I also remind council members that no questions or comments can be directed to those providing public comments tonight. So please ensure that you provide us with your name and contact details through the sign-in sheet that is near the door so that staff may follow up if necessary. We have a lot of people here tonight, and I encourage you to select a representative. If you need to speak on your behalf, if you've got any kind of similar comments or thoughts, please remember that you have 2 minutes to make your comments. And as you will notice, I do not have a gavel. I have never used a gavel in this council chamber, and so the clerk will be timing each of the comments to 2 minutes, and she will be using a bell when the 2 minutes, oh, there we go. And we will keep the entire comment period to 20 minutes in total. So we welcome everybody that would like to come forward and make a comment to council. And remember, please start with your name and contact details.
Hi, Ed White, Mill Street in Port Hope. What we witnessed today, I can't believe how long you guys went on and on and on and on. And I'm quite sure most of the people here know that that's the reason why this thing's been going on for as long as it has. All the dynamics about what's going on. Councillor Toms said that you should have a third party. I've been following this through probably 3 or 4 different councils, and they all say the same thing. Well, we want to move forward on this thing, and yet you spend half an hour on a paragraph dotting I's and crossing T's. Doesn't show that you want to move on. Just shows that you want to hear your voice. These people here are tired, okay? They're tired of hearing promises that don't come true. So hire the third guy. Just hire him. And see if you can talk these people into agreeing to whatever happens, and see if we can talk you guys into agreeing to whatever happens. I mean, this thing's been going on since 2013? And everybody always says, well, we want to move forward. Well, no, you don't. You don't move forward. You just get another staff report. You just get another report on something else. Does this thing have teeth? Does this motion have teeth? What's the timeline on this guy's report? If in fact this even goes through, is there a timeline? Are we going to wait another 3 years? I just think about what you're doing. You guys are supposed to be taking care of these people. You're not supposed to be worrying about a paragraph. It may seem important to you, but I don't see as that it feels important to a lot of the people here about a paragraph. So just, if you're going to move forward, move forward.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate your comment.
Good evening. Sarah Sculthorpe. I live in Hope Township. I would like to identify that we live in an absolutely amazing, beautiful community. We have a magnificent downtown, and we have beyond magnificent rural community. And I would like to think that we could get along. We both have the best of the best going. I beg to ask how many people in Ward 1 ride their beautiful bicycles into Ward 2. And how many people in Ward 2 come into Ward 1 to go to the bank or the grocery store, the Jack Burger, whatever. We have everything there is to have. But when I read up there that we're thinking and maybe wanting to discuss economic development and what can happen in Ward 2, we do not want all this growth in Ward 2. That is not why we live there. We don't want sidewalks. We don't want streetlights. We love our beautiful rural lifestyle. And we are asking that Ward 1 and the municipality understand that. We don't understand why our taxes have gone up by 300 and 400% when the services we have are snow plowing. And we're not asking for more services. We are asking that you respect our lifestyle And our lifestyle does not deserve to have taxes increase by 300 and 400%. And I'm hoping somehow that this report can identify why this has happened and is it justified. So I thank you for taking the time to hear this evening. And I, as Ed White said, I hope that something will finally happen. And I thank Mr. Angus and John for coming together with this opportunity for all of you to hear this. So please let this have some teeth.
Thank you very much for that comment. Moving on to the next person that would like to come forward for a comment.
Susan Smith Canton. Like Sarah just said, Ian and John and the whole group, they've spent countless hours on this. We are a large group. We are Ward 2. Somehow there's a separate entity there, but you make it that way. You make our taxes so high. We don't have anything, and they just go up and up and up. With Ian's and John's, the group's proposals here, like I think Ben Corelli did it in 2013 and 14, same thing, same information. You're not in a hurry. This isn't going to be in a hurry. Never mind all the garble. Like Ed said, no more garble. Just, you're going to deal with rural focus groups, delegations, what we came forward with. Deal with that. Don't go out, to me, don't go out and get some third party to impose something on us that you might think is right. We can't wait another 10 years for reports to come. We need things done quicker. We have to bring our taxes down. You have to deal with what was spoken about here tonight, not that. Quickly. It has to be quickly. It's been going on for so long. Don't say another year. Don't say another 6 months. It has to come quickly. We've had enough.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Hello, my name is Rob Vandenberg. I'm so far in the municipality in the north that my address is actually Baileyboro. So I live in R1 Baileyboro. Coming here tonight, the reason why I thought I'd just come up here, I'm a simple guy. I worked for 5 years on the municipal fire department up in Garden Hill. As firefighters, we put the wet stuff on the red stuff. The reason why I thought I'd just come up here and speak is because when I moved to this municipality 24 years ago, my taxes were $1,200. And now they're just south of $8,000. And so that's unsustainable. I'd love to retire into this community, but when you look at around the room, there's lots of gray hairs and no hairs like myself. And so just looking forward, I can't imagine being on a fixed income and looking at every year municipality coming back to the trough asking for more. We don't have any more to give. So take that into account and please do what you need to do to make this happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that heartfelt comment. We have someone else coming up.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Dalma from Campbell Croft, from a 1,144 square foot home with a tax bill of $5,300. And when I called the tax department, they said it's going up in September again. And I've heard a bit of deflection tonight. I've heard people say, hey, this isn't our fault, it's past councillors. I have heard people say, I don't know anything about Hamilton Township, and then in the next sentence saying, we know all about Hamilton Township's problems. I've also heard people say, well, Ward 1 residents also complain about their taxes, and I'd like to point something out. their taxes have gone up 17%. And everybody's taxes go up. It has to keep up with inflation, which is always changing, but on average, call it 2% a year. 2% over 25 years is 50. And their taxes have gone up 17%. That means even when you take inflation into account, Ward 1's taxes have gone down compared to inflation. And the reason for that is because Ward 2 has been subsidizing in their place. My experience of politics is that people like to say nice things so that people are appeased and then not follow through. But I hope that you can see from our presence here tonight, we're not just going to show up one time or two times. We're going to keep coming back because something needs to be done, and for real. And it's not a joke. It's not something to smirk about, laugh about. It's real life for a lot of people. So I appreciate that this is taken seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward? Yes, please.
Hello, Michael Veen. Some of you have heard me before. I just wanted to come up today. A lot of what I would have said has already been iterated today by my fellow community members. But I just wanted to say my property taxes have gone up 219%. I moved in 2017. My property taxes were $3,700. The previous owner advertised my property at $3,200. One of the reasons why I moved to the community was because of the low property taxes. As of 2024, my property taxes are well over $8,000, and I'm a farm. I'm a business owner. I run a business. I bring business into your community. I can't keep up with this increase. It's too much. You charge me for things like streetlights. I own a farm. I don't want streetlights. I want stars. You charge me for parks. I own a farm. My farm is my park. Why am I paying for that? I don't use it. But I do bring business. I bring revenue into your community. I've started a business. I'm trying to keep that business going. But if the property taxes keep going the way they are, I can't make money. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Anyone else like to come forward?
My
Thank
name
you.
is Linda Beaulieu, and I'm at Highway 2 at 65, County 65. I have 100 acres. We moved here on the farm for lower taxes because they were lower than in town. However, they went from $3,000 and now they are almost $10,000. Now you tell me that's sustainable? We have no services like everybody else who have spoken to you here tonight. And why are the taxes lower in some areas, in some counties, like Ward 1, and why are ours, Ward 2, are 300 and 400 times higher? Like all of these good people here. There's no reason for that. An investigation should be done if you guys don't do anything about it. Take my word for it. We will call everyone who will listen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. I see someone else coming up.
I'm going to be short. My name is Boris Kamovich. I live in Garden Hill with my family. We moved here in 2003. I'm not going to tell you what my taxes were. You know they change. But I mentioned this once to Mayor that we had a meeting in 2013 to Linda Thompson, and when the same conversation came up, and I said a very simple thing. The amalgamation is like a marriage. Two people came together and they try to make it work. It's not working. It stopped working. And please understand this. We don't love you anymore. And we want to be civilized. And we just want to go away. And you guys can do what you want to do and date whoever you want to date. And we'll date whoever we want to date. It's just simple. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Can you hold your applause, please, so we can hear the next comment?
Hi, my name is Rita Vogelpost, and we live on Ganaraska Road in Campbellcroft. We just moved here 7 months ago, And when we bought our property, there's the statement of what the taxes are. And because it's private information, you can't find out from the town or the municipality how much the taxes are. Well, let me just say I was a little more than shocked when we received our $12,000 bill for taxes. We do have 100 acres, 60 acres is forest. I've signed up for the forest management program to hopefully reduce that. There's 30 acres that are farmed that we leased to a farmer. And we were looking to do farm work as well. Seriously reconsidering that. I've never thought I'd be in front of council again, and just a little bit about my background, which really is irrelevant to this, but I'm sort of angry that I have to be here. I spent the last 25 years of my life working with the town of Melton, Halton Region, and the federal government fighting CN Rail for the 400-acre intermodal terminal that they were putting in. It's become my life. I'm still fighting it, and I don't live in the community anymore. So to be faced with this nonsense of unimaginable taxes is just mind-boggling to me. So what I'm asking is, when will we know what the tax increase is going to be? Because I need to figure out whether I'm staying or leaving. I'm also asking, my understanding is Milton is increasing the taxes comparable to the cost of living increase. But I'm also asking if council would consider freezing the tax increase for the Ward 2 until this nonsense is resolved, because it is absolutely not sustainable to be paying that much. We bought here, we love the community, the people we've met are fabulous, but I don't know how people are going to make this work. I was hoping this would be a place that my kids could take the farm and take that over. I don't even know if that's realistic. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your comments. See someone else making their way.
Good evening. Thank you. Larry DeFosse, Hope Township. Lived in the area for about 30 years, and I've watched this go on, endlessly from council to council, bumped again and again. Nothing gets done. It's gotten to the point where taxes have become so high that you're forcing people to move. They have to move out of their house because they simply can't afford the taxes. And when you call and you ask about it, well, sucks to be you. I guess you're going to have to move. And that's the attitude. Well, we've had enough of that attitude. Things have to change one way or another, but this ends because this is not sustainable for this community. You guys think that we're just a piggy bank? You go, chop, 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 whatever you want. Not happening anymore. This has to end tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. I think we have a few more people coming up.
Hi, Pat Hallett from Hope Township. I want to talk about things that actually reflect the taxes as far as, okay, let's talk about George Hamilton School that's been sitting empty for the last few years, and the police services have been using it free for the last few years. I'm pretty sure I heard when you guys purchased the property, it was to make money for our community to offset. And yet I hear that the police services have been using it for nothing for the last couple of years. Don't get me wrong. I find that my community feels safer since they've been there. Nice bunch of people, don't disturb anybody. But the fact that I hear that you want to sell the school because it costs about $25,000 a year to keep it up, when it could be making its own revenue, you guys are smart people. I would have thought that you guys would have figured that out when it became empty and when you got the different services in there to use it, instead of giving it for free. I do hear that these police services are going to have to find alternate places to do their maneuvers, which means that's going to up our taxes yet again. They're going to have to go to places like Ottawa where they have to travel, stay overnight. All that kind of stuff reflects on our taxes. So even though that wasn't really discussed tonight, that is part of what's going on here and what I think reflects how you guys aren't really paying attention. It makes me wonder what other pieces of property are sitting around, not being utilized to their full potential like they could, like the school, make some revenue, offset our costs out there. Maybe look around and see if there's other things in our community that could be doing the same instead of raising our taxes and letting buildings sit around empty doing nothing.
Thank you for your comment. And I think we have one
Good
last
evening,
person.
Holly Bluffkin from Oak Hill Road. First of all, I'd like to thank the two gentlemen in the group that came forward with all this information. John Cullen, Ian Angus, they deserve a big round of applause, even though you've asked us not to. Hours and hours.
So, sorry, this is the decorum of the council chambers, and I
realize
respect
that.
that you appreciate very much those efforts.
But Mayor, I have lived in this community for over 30 years. Since Mr. Angus was our reeve when I first came here. I came here for the reason of non-development. I love the rural way of life. Does anyone in this room know what I do for my living? I sell Canada internationally. I sell tourism. And the people all around the world want what we have and covet here. So if this isn't a case for us to all understand, I think Ms. Mink also reiterated that tonight, that we should cherish what we have in our backyard. And we should look after the ones that are the stewards of this rural way of life. So can we address this and find a way to make it work? If not, if we have to look at separation, then that's what we have to do, because I preferred it the other way. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your comments. Yes, absolutely.
Samantha Morton. I actually live in Ward 1, and to hear what some of these folks are paying in taxes, like one number I heard was double my taxes. That is absurd. It really makes me wonder where money is being spent, especially when I can see like issues with services within town. At the committee of the whole meeting, you guys were really focused on residents are complaining about what services we get, and we are, but your conversation also really evolved around Parks and Rec and all that kind of stuff, and cost of going to the swimming and whatnot, whereas most residents are complaining that our taxes aren't providing clearing the roads properly, although Ward 2 looked great from what I saw as a bus driver. In town, however, pretty dangerous if you really want to know the truth. So it's more so, where's the money being spent, and is it being spent properly? Because it sure doesn't seem like it, especially to hear what these folks are paying in taxes. Not that I want to pay more, but something needs to be done, because obviously something's going wrong.
Thank you very much for your comment. We still have it on in case there's any. Yes, please.
John Cullen again from Hope Township. I think it can all be summed up by saying we got along much better as neighbors than we do as family. And I think that if we went back to being neighbors rather than family, we'd be a lot better off, both of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else in the audience or in the overflow area that would like to come up and make a comment? Okay, if you've already made a comment, you can only have one comment per comment period. Anyone else that would like to be heard this evening in the comment period? Thank you very much. We will now move on to correspondence. Item number 8, 8.1. Dr. W. Marcus Strimbley regarding emergency gas leak detection and subsequent meter replacement. And Councillor Pearson has brought this forward for discussion. Councillor Pearson, perhaps we will wait a minute for the chambers to clear. Okay, moving back to item number 8, the correspondence 8.1. I'm going to ask Councillor Pearson to speak to the matter.
Yeah, so I just elevated this for awareness for the community on the above and beyond that our Port Hope police officers do. If you've had a chance to read this, this is a feel-good type thing from Dr. Marcus, where the Port Hope police were just on a patrol and they smelled some natural gas at 1 a.m. and they decided to investigate and potentially saved a lot of lives. So I just wanted to put that out as a feel-good type thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that forward. It's important that we acknowledge the service of our first responders always. So we're going to, would you like to receive this for information, Councillor Pearson, or did you just want to speak to it? Okay, so we will move on then to, okay, we will then receive it for information. Councillor Les will move it. Councillor Darrell will second. All in favor? And that's passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 9, consent agenda, adoption of minutes. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered collectively as one motion. Council members may request that specific items be removed for separate discussion, deliberation, action. The consent items are listed on the agenda. Would any member of council like to remove any of these items for separate discussion? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes as listed? Moved by Councillor Les, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 10, consent agenda advisory committee and board meetings. Would anyone like to remove any items under this consent agenda for separate discussion? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder to receive this item for information? So it's 10.1 to 10.6 as listed on the agenda. I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Darrell. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 11, items for consideration. 11.1, report DS0325, request to waive film permit fees for March 24th permit application, Once Upon a Christmas Crown, production by Christmas Romcom Inc. And at this point, I'm going to be removing myself from the room and giving over the chair to the Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so the mayor has already read this report, so I won't repeat it. I'll just ask for a mover and seconder to bring it forward. Anyone? Moved by Councillor Adam, second by Councillor Les. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Les?
Yeah, the money's not important, the $500. I know they're paying other fees. The question, and it's out in the public too, is do we set a precedent by waiving fees? I'm just looking for other input.
Thank you, Councillor Todd.
Yeah, I think my question is for staff, and Andrew, you're taking this one? Yeah, your mic's probably not working. So my question about the recommended motion of removing the $500, I actually don't understand why. I read it over a couple times, and I just want to get some clarity, because it sort of felt like it's we don't really have the money to do this, so we want to take a $500 haircut, and so now it's starting to feel like a grant, more like a community grant, and so I was just trying to get some better understanding as to why we're doing this at all.
It sounds to me like the questions are relatively the same, so hopefully I want to answer well. The reality is that we are already trying to look at supporting these types of very small productions within the municipality. It's one of the key considerations as we are looking at a new film policy, to which there is an RFP. It's in process at this point in time. And this request just happened to come. It's not the first time. I can recall at least 2 prior where our fees have been prohibiting this type of local film development. And I think that to continue to support and move further on the idea of making Port Hope a film destination, we have to recognize it can't just be with respect to companies like HBO. We have to also make it available and affordable for independent film producers as well.
Councillor Less.
So if we do it for this size of film, why don't we put in our policy that any film that doesn't hit a threshold, we do it, so that we don't run into any problems with the bigger productions. That, no, we set a threshold for small productions, they have limited budgets. Anybody that gets to this level or above, they pay the fee. Those below don't. Do it for everybody.
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Les, I think we can certainly bring that forward as a consideration. We will be looking to a third party to assist with us in the film policy development, and there's no reason why we can't ask that to be an item for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Adam.
Andrew, maybe you can help me out with this. Is this a for-profit or a non-for-profit?
I can't comment on the level of profitability. It is a private firm. They have not just asked the municipality, they have asked some of the supporting groups for concessions as well. My understanding is that some have come forward and granted them as well.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder, and I'll ask all in favor. And any opposed? So we have 2 opposed, so that is carried. All right.
Moving on to item number 12, committee reports and recommendations. 12.1, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of March 4th, 2025 regarding petition, and Zakarchuk and Michael Walton regarding ZBO 1 2024, 276 to 282 Victoria Street North. Is there anything further anyone would like to add before we vote on the matter? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment. I have had a couple of discussions about this, and I just want to validate that there is concerns about traffic, and that is a separate petition, in my opinion. I appreciate the petition, the concern about this property. I just want to reiterate that development on this property, development is what it is there for. If there is concern about traffic and the intersection down the road, valid concern, different petition. I just want to put that out there.
Thank you. Councillor Less.
Yeah, I know we need the housing. It wouldn't be my first choice as to the type of build it is, but I don't think there's anything prohibiting the developer for asking for the zoning from apparently what our staff is advising us. So I don't think there's much we can do at this stage.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Clare.
Just I was missing the opportunity to speak to this 2 weeks ago when I was out of town, but I just, on the traffic issue, I did just want to share the update because I think that is one of the main concerns that was presented. and that is being dealt with. I know the Director of Works and Engineering had a meeting with the county last week about that intersection. There is a traffic study that has been done. They are taking into consideration the future growth and increased traffic that would result from this development. And I believe the county staff, because Jocelyn, there is a county road. We already have a stop sign, right? So it's the issue of Jocelyn. And my understanding is that the county staff responsible for that will be bringing forward something in the budget for next year's county budget to address the traffic.
I do want to comment on that as well, but Councillor Les, go ahead.
Just on another point, I think the way we voted in our parking bylaw of 1.25 spaces per apartment is going to turn around and bite us in the you know what. The parking there is pretty premium now on Trefusis, and they're going to the other side of Victoria to park on side streets over there. I think this will compound the problem. I think if we have any say with the developer, is that we lobby for more parking. And if that means him giving up units on the ground floor, so be it.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Les. And I do want to thank Director McAdam for coming back with clarification on so many of the important points regarding this development. We really appreciate both the detail and the clarity with which you addressed some of the concerns that have come forward. And of course, no development is ever going to be perfect and address all the things that are in front of us, but we note, Councillor Les, your comments about the parking, and I know that we'll still be having conversations about affordable units within that development as well. So that's not going away. So the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Les, seconded by Councillor Darrell. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 12.2, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of March 4th, 2025 regarding report CS0425 regarding annual local board and committee reports 2024. Is there anything further anyone would like to add before we vote on the matter? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for the recommended motion? Councillor Adam moving and Councillor Todd seconding. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 12.3, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of March 4th, 2025 regarding report CS0525 regarding 2024 to 2027 Heritage Port Hope Advisory Committee and Accessibility Advisory Committee appointment. Is there anything further anybody would like to add before we vote on the matter? Seeing none, the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Clare. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 12.4, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of March 4th, 2025 regarding report ES0525 regarding 2024 annual performance reports for the Port Hope wastewater treatment plant and sewage collection system. Is there anything further anybody would like to add before we vote on the matter? Seeing none, the recommended action is of course on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed unanimously. 12.5, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of March 4th, 2025 regarding report PS0425 regarding encroachment bylaw. And this is deferred to Committee of the Whole meeting of April 1st, 2025. So no action is required at this point. Moving on to item number 13, notice of motions. We have none this evening. Item 14, bylaws consent agenda. Bylaws are passed by consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove a bylaw for separate consideration and discussion? If not, can I get a mover and seconder to pass the bylaws as listed on the agenda? Passed by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Autumn. All in favor? That is passed unanimously. And now we move on to item 15, the question period. Is it now time for question period? Remember, the purpose of question period is to make inquiries of council related to matters of municipal business. Please note that this is not meant to be an avenue to ask questions to staff. Please direct your questions to council members. And I also want to highlight that if your questions are operational in nature, they may be best answered by a member of staff. Following the meeting, contact information for our directors and senior staff are available by the door. And if you do have operational questions, please ensure that you contact them, or we can pass on your questions, of course. And when you do come up to the mic, we would ask that you please identify your name, ensure the purple button is pressed, and that the microphone is on before speaking. And we'll start at the council table. Any questions from council for your council members? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So it seems a little weird to be asking a question because I don't think council can answer this question, but I have no other place to bring this forward publicly. There's a lot of people from the rural community watching still. A month ago, I feel pressured to make a decision about rural internet very quickly. And it was communicated that there's going to be signs up. They're going to start working in a few weeks, and that the community will be advised. And there is no signs up. I have no idea what is happening with this. So I don't know. I guess it's a question to my council. How do I communicate this to the rural community? I have my own questions about when is it coming? Where are you starting? When am I going to get more information? When are these conversations going to take place?
Thank you for that question. In fact, I do believe that the Director of Corporate Services would like to weigh in on.
Yeah, I can speak to the importance of just continuing to look at the county website. We have engaged with the county, hearing your concerns and hearing council's concerns to make sure there's a comprehensive engagement plan. We've offered additional support in relation to the work that will take place in the municipality of Port Hope, recognizing that we've got 260 square kilometers of work to be done through that. But it's our understanding that the project is actually starting in Hamilton Township and work is underway in Bewdley, or beginning in the very near future. I see you smirking. That is the information we have from the county with respect to this project. That's our understanding. And when they are in a position to start work in Port Hope, it is our expectation that the county communicate the information, and we will supplement that to the best of our ability.
Thank you. We've got lots of questions around the table, so I'm just going to go right to the end. Councillor Les.
Yeah, what happens if the other parts of our community or the county don't buy into this? And where does that leave us? And secondly, if we didn't have all the information and you voted in favor of it, then that's on you.
I believe the director wants. Am I reading you correctly? Yes. Okay.
The county has done some communications with respect to the fact that all municipalities in the county have signed off on this project, and it's proceeding.
Councillor Clare.
Vicky, I did, in response to your question, I did after the vote and after the last county delegation, I did actually specifically follow up with Scott Berry, who was one of the county staff who was here presenting, pointed out to him that in the meantime, before their official communication and engagement strategy rolls out, that it would likely be members of this council and our staff here in Port Hope that would be fielding those questions. So I asked him to provide me with the contact of an individual at county who would feel that we could direct people to in the interim. I think you were copied on that email, and he did identify himself as that correct contact. So I would suggest contacting Scott. Has that changed? Have you tried? Yeah.
May I?
Yeah.
So after that, I had to drive around with a different person who told me that they may get a temporary phone and be the contact. And that's why I'm asking, because I don't understand.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we can get some clarification on that from an operational perspective and make sure that the right information is on the county website. I'm also happy to bring that up tomorrow at our county council meeting that we're having first thing in the morning. Any other questions around the table? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So second question, and I might get some eyes rolling, but it is almost kitten season and time for people to drive their pregnant cats out to the rural area and drop them off. So I'm just wondering, I have been trying for 5 years or so to address this problem. I had a conversation with somebody today who said, what happens when this happens to me? Not their cats, not their problems. Go to the Humane Society, get turned away. What's the answer? What are we going to do? Do they come here and bring them on Tuesday nights? I don't know. What's the answer?
I think we can bring forward that question and get some clarification on that matter. Any other questions from around the council table? Okay, so if we have members of the public that would like to come up and ask their questions, please state your name, your address, and make sure the purple button is pressed.
Jim Sculthorpe, 1685. Councillor Mink asked the question that I was going to ask about the fiber optics, but it has started in Hamilton Township, County Road 28, and the 5th concession of Hamilton. They were working there today, and they told me they didn't have a crew anywhere else in the county but there. So they have started. I had another question. Highway 28 and 401. There seems to be a lot of deforesting going on to the northwest sector. Has the MTO come back and discussed a cloverleaf?
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
the whole presentation by MTO, it's going to be quite radical. Phillips Road will be cut off. There will be no availability to turn right if you're going northbound on Phillips Road. The little easy on, easy off by the McDonald's is gone.
Okay, because they came to council 6 months ago and gave
Yeah.
a big.
That was what it, yep. So this is the start of it.
The deputy mayor would like to speak, and then I may want to add a comment. Go ahead.
I remember that, and I remember it being a concept, not approved. I think this is the road widening, and it's to get access into that side of the highway to have space to widen. The 401, I don't believe it's the interchange at this time. And if it is, this new I'm hearing about
Yes, it is, because I talked to the owner of the McDonald's, and they're well aware of the impacts that it could potentially bring.
And I think we'll get some operational clarity from the Director of Corporate Services.
The tree removal in question is solely in relation to the widening project and the staging required to do that. We did have a presentation from the MTO, take a word for it, Jim, 6 months ago with respect to their draft designs and future designs for more than a decade from now, the work they'll be doing. I don't have any understanding in my role that the final design has been approved or recommended. It's a long, lengthy process with respect to environmental assessments and the PIC process they have on that. We can take that back to our Director of Works to get some clarity for council on where they stand on that project. But the work being done right now is solely with respect to the widening of the 401 and the associated bridges.
Thank you. Did you have another question? Okay, thank you.
No, thank you very
Thank
much.
you for your question. Questions? Anybody else? Yes, please.
There we go. Rita Vogelpost. I'm in Campbellcroft on Ganaraska Road. I typed it so I stay on topic. I have a question for council to maybe take action or staff to take action to look into this. I know there's discussion about the Wesleyville expansion, which truly I know nothing about, but I wanted to address in 2001 when we started our fight with CN, there was Joyce Savaline was regional chair in Halton Region. And there was a community member, Mr. Burton. He did a thorough examination of a presentation that was given to council about the increased cost to the community with the new development. And one would expect that the new development would support itself with the tax generated, and it absolutely does not. So I hope that's been a thorough examination on your part. And if not, maybe you should reach out to Gary Carr's office, who's the regional chair there. And Mr. Burton is now the mayor of Oakville. So it might be wise to reach out to his office as well to get more details.
Thank you so much
you.
for sharing that. And just as a point of clarification, in terms of the entire Wesleyville concept idea, The only thing that council has agreed to at this point is to enter into further discussions and have a fulsome community engagement process in relation to a potential future energy generating project at Wesleyville. That's where we are in the process. So very early on, and there'll be lots of opportunity for education, awareness, and community engagement to address exactly the kinds of issues that you're talking about. So
Okay.
thank you for bringing that up.
Thank
Very
you.
important.
Thanks.
Good evening. You all know me. I'm the Bear, and I'm here for Float Your Fanny. Under the obligations of my foundational funding, I have to invite you all to Float Your Fanny. April 12th. So I'm taking this opportunity to invite you to all come out and enjoy a bright, sunny day, welcoming spring, and thank you all for your support for Float Your Fanny.
Thank you for that invitation, and we're certainly hoping for warm, balmy weather for that day. And I believe Councillor Clare would like to.
Just an anecdote for you, Barry. I did an interview yesterday with Mark Rockburn for Municipal Matters, and on his list of key issues facing Port Hope right now, what are you going to do to replace the Adamsons and keep Float Your Fanny made the cut for this week.
The man, the legend, the Float Your Fanny. Oh yes, sorry, Councillor Adam.
Thank you. I just wanted to say to the Bear, I made a commitment to Barry a long time ago that I would always respond when he asks us anything. So thank you for the invite. I accept your invite, and I'll also volunteer to help you out.
Thank you. Yes.
John Bickle, just a comment. I think you people missed the first part of Ian's presentation where he said you have a month to rectify what we're saying. We did not come here tonight with an ask. We came with a demand. And we are demanding that in a month we'll be back and we want answers. I'm also one of the founding members of the group. I was meeting with the province and Hamilton Township long before Ian got involved. So I've got a lot more time and effort into what's been going on. And like I say, we came with a demand, not an ask. You have a month.
Do you want to state that in a question, just to be consistent with the requirements of our bylaw?
Yes, if you want to. Yeah. Like I say, the first part of Ian's presentation was you have a month to come back with an answer on what you're going to do. Otherwise, we are going another route. And like Ian said, we stood alone before, we can stand alone again.
Thank you for that comment. And I think we have Ed coming up for a question.
I didn't really have a question, but now I got a question. Les mentioned there's going to be major development there at that intersection there of the 401 and 28 highway. I was just wondering, I got a good response to my question from the committee of the whole meeting. People came and talked to me, and that was great. I was glad to hear that. I was just wondering, is there some way that you could put up on the Port Hope website the diagram or mapping of whatever's going on at that intersection? Like if something has been approved or something has been allowed to go through, is it possible that you could put up something that we could all read just so that we could see what's going on?
Thank you for that question, Ed, and we'll make sure that that gets forwarded to the comms team and get a response back to you on this issue. Councillor Mink, Deputy Mayor would like to make a comment about this, and then we have time for one last question.
I just want to clarify for the record that there is no development coming other than the widening of the 401 at this time. Just, we don't want to miscommunicate that. I think there's still potential that design won't happen. It hasn't officially been approved. So I just want to, there is going to be work there, but changing the road structure is not happening to our Port Hope roads right now.
But just going back to your question, given that there's some questioning and confusion about what's happening there, I don't see a downside of bringing this forward to our comms team and asking whether they could put something on the website to just clarify for the public what's happening, so that they're not filling in the information gaps with misinformation. Yes, please.
Samantha Morton. I got a couple questions. Lately, there's been a lot of bylaws being passed or repealed and replaced in 2025. Does the council feel that they've followed due process in all of those new bylaws?
I'd like to assure you that there's a very strict process that we do need to follow that is determined by our procedural bylaws. The clerk, I don't know if you want to just weigh in on that from a process perspective, just to let you know that we do follow all the right steps in the process. And it's a very strict process.
The short answer is yes.
Okay. So are those voting to pass bylaws required to read them and fully understand them before voting?
Absolutely. We all receive them as part of our council business. And so it goes through a two-step process where we deliberate and discuss at a committee of the whole meeting. And then 2 weeks later, we do a formal vote at the council table. So all the information is shared with all the council members. We all have an opportunity to read and comment and discuss.
Okay. I guess those were on the table, so I will save them for later.
Thank you very much for those questions. Seeing, oh, yes, please.
Larry DeFoste again. We've had a lot of discussions tonight about taxes, and we've seen the enormous tax increases that people are receiving. One thing that's not being mentioned, when I look at my tax bill, I get a number. That's it. Doesn't tell me how much that tax bill has been reduced. So these insane taxes are being represented as this. Meanwhile, the percentage of the interest money on that 10 million is being used to reduce my taxes. So my tax load is actually much higher than what I'm being presented with, because I'm paying twice. I'm paying a percentage of that $1 million that belongs to us. On top of that, I'm paying this number that the county, or sorry, that the municipality is levying against me. So I don't see this being talked about, and I think it needs to be taken into consideration, because what we're actually paying is actually much higher than what is being represented on those tax bills.
So if I were to turn around your comment into a question, are you asking for clarification?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I think we've got the essence of what you're asking to get some clarification on. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay. We're moving on now to item number 16, the confirmatory bylaw. It's now time for the confirmatory bylaw. This bylaw confirms the proceedings that took place this evening and provides for formal adoption through a bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. This concludes our business to be covered on today's agenda. We've reached the end of the agenda for today, and I'm in a position to adjourn at 9:47 p.m. Thank you to everyone in attendance.